Welcome to Tarot Tuesday. Today is February 18th. This reading is intended for the 19th through February 26th. Today we will be using a special deck, the Masters of the Universe. Some of you may recall from the 80s there was a cartoon and then a movie that was made of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This deck was inspired by that show, that cartoon. And we'll see what the Masters have to say for us for this week. As always, we do a 5-card spread to give you an idea what you're looking forward to, what you're looking to avoid this week. And before we give that 5 cards, we cut the deck. Okay. So, as you see Battle Cat, also known as Cringer, on the back of the cards, let's see, more importantly, what the message on the front brings this week. Our first card, wow, the King of Shields. So Skeletor sits here as the King of Shields, all protected, all keeping himself safe. The problem with that is that if this week we go and we follow that theory as Skeletor does, of putting those shields up, being the king of the shields, being the king of the walls, nobody gets in. And if we don't let people in those walls, how can we find the things we're looking to strive to have in life? So as much as there are times where we need to be the king of shields and block ourselves up and block ourselves in, we also have to remember to give that leeway, that doorway for someone else to walk in and bring us joy in our life, and not just barricade ourselves in all the time. So speaking of barricading ourselves in all the time, maybe that's actually what this is trying to say. You know, it's funny about the cards. Sometimes, you know, you get the impression off of a card, you read the card, and then the next card tells you a little more of the story. And that's what you see a lot with my readings that I get. And the King of Shields is telling us that the Hermit, which albeit Shadow Weaver was not directly with Skeletor, however, what the Hermit tells us is the Hermit tells us that it is time for a time of self-reflection. It's time to take ourselves, figure out what we want to do, where we want to go, who we want to be in life. It doesn't matter what anybody else wants us to be in life, it's who do we want to be in life. And the Hermit reminds us that we need to self-reflect on that and remind ourselves sometimes. Maybe that's why the King of Shields is there, to protect us while we, to build those walls while we figure out what we need to do this week, because it's shaping up to be a wild week, my friends. The Moon, another heavy hitter. Now the Moon brings us many blessings, as well as it brings us a little worry and concern. The worry and concern is the fact is the Moon is always watching over. The Moon sees all, right? For those of you, I may be dating myself, but there's an old Conway Twitty tune that talks about talking to the man in the moon, because he sees all, he knows all. And here what we have is we have that Skeletor is peeking in on the rest of the universe, and he's watching his cat, Panther, as well as Battle Cat, as well as our friend from She-Ra. And Skeletor's watching over these things. So what we need to know is that as we are blocking ourselves up this week a little bit, building those walls a little bit and kind of toughening up some things, We do our self-reflecting, but in the meantime, we do have people that are watching every move we make. And that's not necessarily in a bad way, but remember that when people watch what we do, they're watching for a reason. They either want to know more about us, they want to see how we operate, or sometimes they're watching because they're actually looking up to us, although the moon here has it showing looking down. But sometimes they look up to us. How do you handle situations? What are you going through? How do you handle that? The moon knows all. Those very observant around us watch. Those that care about us watch and look and see. So that those who truly care and watch know, hey, something's going on. Maybe I need to step in. Maybe I don't. But know that you do have people watching over you this week, looking up to you, watching you, to try to learn from you, to try to see what you're doing. Oh. So then the Horde Trooper is here, and he's sitting here with the Nine of Swords. Now, what the Nine of Swords tells us is that, as the Horde Trooper is holding his head here, it's because he puts himself in a very, very strange position. He feels safe with those swords all around him, but yet he's still conflicted within. Because eventually, as this week moves on, we're going to need to start knocking those walls down as we do that self-reflecting and move forward. The problem is we tend to beat ourselves up over things that are not under our control. We have all the safety nets in the world. We're safe in bed. We have all these swords to keep us protected. However, the Horde Trooper is still torn. He's still got a problem. There's still issues at hand. And that's more of paying attention to your mental and emotional state this week, folks. I told you it's going to be a wild one. It's already showing out to be a wild one. Pay attention to your mental health and pay attention to your emotional well-being. Because you can protect yourself with all of the ammo in the world. But if you're still torn up inside, you're not going to feel safe. You're not going to feel protected. You're not going to feel comfortable until you straighten those issues out. And lastly, well, does it get any worse than that? Well, it does, because here's the thing. Here's the fun thing with death. And I say fun in a very ironic way, I guess. Because what death is showing us, see, this is the confusion of it. Everybody likes to jump to death to be something bad, something evil. No, folks, death is the death. It is the end of something. But to have new beginnings, to move forward and grow, and stand on your feet, and no longer be torn, but still be protected. To make sure you're doing the right thing in those situations. You're keeping an eye on those you need to keep an eye on, but at the same time, you know people are keeping an eye on you, and they're watching over you, and they're watching you. As you self-reflect from building those walls. Folks, death was an obvious conclusion for this week, if you ask me, with the way these cards have laid out, because death is the change of something for a new beginning. If you want a new beginning, you gotta have to let things go. Things have to end. Stuff has to stop for new things to grow. We're in the middle of winter right now. It's freezing cold outside. Nothing's growing in the north, because that is death. So that the spring can bring new to grow. Now, for those of you who may not know Masters of the Universe lore, let me tell you here. You have He-Man and She-Ra down here in trouble, in peril, not necessarily dead, as Skeletor sits atop Panther, sitting tall. Now, the thing about this card is the flag that Skeletor has risen here. That is not a Skeletor flag, for that is a flag of the Horde, which is another group of villains in this universe. So what that tells me is that Skeletor has not only made a change, he has not only conquered those problems he had around him, he's even conquered those that pretended to be friends. He even conquered those who pretended to be around us for right reasons when they weren't. He conquered that. He's won. And in this position, it's not always about winning and losing, but here it really is. Because every time you let go of something or someone that isn't good for you, isn't right for you, be it a friend, be it a relationship, every time that you can walk away and hold your head high, you've conquered that. That was the death of that situation. Okay? So folks, as we move forward this week, the Masters of the Universe have brought us amazing messages. They've told us, shield up. Have our armor, be tough. Self-reflect. Figure out who we are and who we want to be. Know that those are watching over us. As we watch ourselves, watch our back, watch forward, we have to watch all of our surroundings as those around us are watching us. Are we doing the right thing? Are we putting out a good example? Figure out why you're so torn about that. Because you have all the safety in the world. Why are you still torn? Maybe that's what's going to answer this for you. Maybe you have to go back to it. Sometimes we do. That happens very frequently, that we think we have it handled. We think we have a situation taken care of and under control. And then we realize there's still problems we have, so we have to go back and reflect on that. How do we handle that going forward? And again, folks, I say, pay attention to your mental health and emotional well-being this week with this. And then the death brings the change. Without great ends, there are no great beginnings. So folks, this week, be mindful of this. Go forward with this, knowing that in the end, you have it handled. The only thing stopping you through any of this is yourself. Okay? So do as much of this self-reflecting, this internal diagnostic of yourself, so you don't end up here before getting here. Okay? And we'll see you again next time from the Masters of the Universe.